Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DC Trainings. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and it is a thrilling Thursday today to wrap up our Module 3 Report of Findings module and move right into which will be this Saturday, the new module, and that's financial arrangements. So thanks for joining today. Today is as I said, it's kind of a wrap up of this module, and we're going to go through the last part. But also, I want to invite your questions because we've covered a lot of information on the report of findings, and I will just I don't want to sound like a broken record, but just to repeat myself, that the better you do the report of findings, the easier financial arrangements gets. And what I notice from many of our members and doctors that I talk to is that their challenge in practice is getting, for lack of a better term, in terms of sales, but it's closing the deal or getting patients to pay. And that's one of the most common reasons why patients stop coming in and discontinue care is due to cost concerns. And what we've found is that the more somebody values a service or something, the more that they're willing to pay for it, right? The more that they'll pay for that service because they value it. And there's so many people that walk around with one of these cell phones, and these things aren't cheap, right? They cost quite a bit of money to have one for your account, and yet people pay that money. Even people that are struggling to put food on the table will still find the money to pay for that iPhone or that cell phone. And that's because of how much they value that service. Well, in the case of health and chiropractic and maintaining optimum health, it's very important that we cover our bases to build value for what we're selling for our patients and the benefit that they'll receive in chiropractic care. Now, just as a recap, because I covered this on the last webinar, and we'll go through this in a bit today, or a bit more today, but there's 3 high points in the report of findings. So if you took away nothing from this whole module except 3 things, and those 3 things are going to lead into a seamless financial arrangements module or section or seminar on Saturday, because I'm looking forward to seeing many of you on Saturday in person. But if you wanted to lead into that in a seamless way, those 3 things are the push off, the demand for care, and the clear 100. And we've covered those in depth, but those 3 points really make or break the report of findings. If you don't cover those, you'll be blindsided at the end of the whole thing after you've spent all your energy and focus and attention around getting this patient signed up for care. And then they'll come at the very end and say, that's okay. I'm just going to go think about it. I'll let you know when I'm ready. And that's it. You're done. You're dead in the water. So there's ways that we can avoid that from happening. And a more specific way to say that is that there's clues that we can watch for before that happens. So we know long before that dreaded, I'm going to think about it comment comes up, we already know it's coming, and therefore we've prepared for that, and we've built value around or from our presentation, if you want to call it that. But we've built value so that before that comment's even made, we already know it's not going to come up because we've addressed it. And that's where I want to take you today, is in terms of a wrap up with this module, is I want you to be confident and comfortable and know where those key points are. If you got nothing else from all of this, those 3 points are going to get you where you want to be and make sure that you have a successful report of findings. So anyway, so let's jump right in, and let me just share my screen. I do want to just remind everyone, and I don't have a screen for this, so I'll explain it as we go, but this weekend is our live seminar, right? It's July 15th at my office in Santa Cruz, California. And it is, actually, I just got a mention about no sound, but I think that we have sound now. Let's see. Let's have somebody raise their hand, and just to make sure I have sound, because I'm pretty sure I do. But okay, great. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so anyways, I digress. The upcoming seminar, which will be in my office. Is that where I was going with that? Sorry. I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't turn on the sound. That would have been terrible. But we're going to be here this Saturday. So please join us right at my office in Santa Cruz. We're going to have a great day from 10 to 3. Come to Santa Cruz. We'll have lots of information for you around financial arrangements. And then after that, if you want to stick around, I'm here. We're going to stay. We're going to, just have a good time afterwards and answer all the questions. I really want to make sure that any questions that you have don't remain unanswered. I want to make sure all your questions in practice are answered so that you are free to serve the masses and have the practice of your dreams right at your fingertips. So let's get into this last part on the reported findings and right there we go. Okay, so you now have, and I'm, obviously this is all based on you following through the whole module. So you now have an organized schedule with your report of findings, right? Your report of findings are still 20 minutes apart, maybe half hour if you're a solo doc, but if you've got CAs, 20 minutes apart. You can also schedule your report of findings during adjusting times. And we had a great report of findings last night. I had right at 5:15, we had a report of findings and we were hopping. I mean, I saw well over 150 patients yesterday by myself, adjusting all day. And I don't mean to say that like you have to see 150 patients. That's just the pace that I've been at for over 25 years now. I love it. Whatever the pace that you want to see your patients at, that is, I support you, and that's a great fit. I just want to make sure that you're able to organize it in a way that you don't feel stressed and that you get to serve as many people as you want. So we had a report of findings during our adjusting times. I was adjusting the whole time, and at one point I was continuing with my adjusting, and my CA said, "Hey, there's a patient that's ready for their first adjustment." And I walked into that room, and there was the lady, and she was ready to go. I adjusted her, and then I just continued my rounds, taking care of all of our patients. So as it says on the screen, your report of findings are still 20 minutes apart, but now you can do them during adjusting times. You don't have to stay after adjusting and stay late to get your report of findings done. You can use a new patient appointment time. I mean, that's a really streamlined way to raise the ceiling in your practice and really dial in the efficiency level that it takes to run a successful practice at any size, right? You want to be as efficient as possible. The new patient daily schedule, before, this would be an example, right? We do our adjusting in the morning from 7:30 to 9:30, and then at 9:45 we switch and we start doing report of findings, CPRs, which is care plan renewals, and we would do those appointments, through the morning until about 11:30. Or till probably 11:45, and then we would be done. So we would have a full, 2 hours of report of findings after the adjusting was done. But now what we can do is we can take our new patient schedule, which in that time frame we had, this is our new patient schedule. So we start our first new patients at 8:15, last new patients at 5:15. There's a schedule of 9 slots there. But now we can actually put a report of findings right into that 3:15 time frame and have a report of findings during our new patient schedule. And that way we're not limited in terms of how many reports of findings we're going to see or do, or new patients either, right? So it's a great way to organize your schedule. This is another benefit of what I've shown you in this module. And it has to do with the high ceiling practice, right? We want to open up our practice. We want to have unlimited service potential. You imagine if BJ Palmer had said, well, we can't see that many people because I don't have enough energy or enough hands to adjust all those people, right? Well, no, he was saying all his focus was around how do we serve more people? How do we bring this miraculous, amazing healthcare approach to the masses, to the world on a global scale, right? And that was his vision. So when we're looking at it from that capacity, I'm not asking you, or BJ Palmer, I'm sure, wasn't asking us all to become a martyr and, kill ourselves or destroy our health because we're trying to take care of so many people. I don't think that was his intention at all. What his intention was to build a world dominating healthcare approach based on the principles that he founded with his father, D.D. Palmer, in chiropractic in 1895, but build that approach in a way so that if every single person in the world one day flipped the switch and said, I want a chiropractor, that we could provide that care. I mean, I think that's a great vision. That's a lot better than driving down to CVS and paying money to pharmaceutical industries, which don't want us to be healthier. They only profit the sicker we are. So their approach is completely the opposite. But what we have and what we do to bring health and enlightenment and maximum health capacity and functional capacity to our communities and our neighborhoods and the world is by maximizing the potential of our practice to operate at a level whereby there are no subluxations preventing us from serving more people. We want to prevent those subluxations from entering our practice or from holding us back to serve the number of people that need us. And so that's where we're going when I'm showing you these final sections of, I lost my share button here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let me share my screen again. So when I'm kind of switching over here, but when I say, let's build a high ceiling practice, that means, doctors, that you're not going to be the one that's breaking your back in order to fix people's backs. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm inspiring for you to do is to incorporate the help of your team to serve as many people as you want to serve. And I want you to have balance, right? My wife and I took a 3-day vacation last week, just a long weekend, added a couple days on. And when we left, and we went and just had some alone time and went camping, actually. But while I was gone, did my patients have to remain subluxated? No, not at all. They continue to receive their adjustments. They continue to receive the vital chiropractic care that they need. And yet for me, I was able to rest for a few days and recoup and recharge and then come back and jump in with both feet. And that's how I want your practice to be too. So with a high ceiling practice, your CAs can deliver reports of findings at any time. Your new ROF schedule in the morning, who knows how many, you've got 2 hours. How many reports of findings can you do in 2 hours if you have 1 or 2 or 3 CAs delivering those reports of findings along with you, doctors, along with you, in addition to you, right? That's in the morning. In the morning, the doctor, that example I showed you was the 9:45 to 11:15 schedule. So my CA can do or report of findings in those 2 hours that we're adjusting. After that, it's my turn. I do reports of findings for 2 hours. So how many can I fit into that time frame? And then in the afternoon, we have another 3 hours where they can now do more reports of findings and continue that process. So we're not limited by a low ceiling practice. And ultimately, what does that equate to? Well, it equates to more money coming into your practice, right? There's really no reason why you have to have a limited income when there's so much service potential. And I'll leave you with not leave you, but I'll finish this with one other thought too. And I've shared this before, but I think we're in a very amazing and magical time. And I brought this up with people outside of my practice. In fact, I was talking about it. I helped a guy when I was camping with my wife last week. There was a guy who was stuck in a ditch on the side of the road. His truck was stuck. And so we pulled over and I helped him get his truck out. And somehow the chiropractic came up in the conversation. Haha, funny how it does that, right? But we were talking about chiropractic and what my question for him was, have you noticed a change in the general mindset of people where people aren't so quick to decide to take a pill or go to a medical doctor for a pharmaceutical product of some kind to mask symptoms or to improve their health? Have you noticed a shift now where, based on what happened in COVID, and there was so much pressure, not so much in terms of getting healthier, but pressure to take a product, a vaccine or a drug. There was so much pressure to do that that pressure not almost, but it turned people off. And I was asking him if in his opinion, he had a different frame of mind now coming out of COVID, where he looked at the pharmaceutical products that are out there for us differently. And he said, absolutely. He said, and this is a great story, but he said, I fired our family doctor. We're done with him. And it wasn't over the vaccine or anything, but it was over other issues where it was actually a cholesterol medication that he didn't want to take anymore. And he decided he didn't want to take it based on all that pressure that was happening in COVID. But he decided he didn't want to take it anymore. And so he went to the family doctor and said, I don't want to take this drug anymore. I want something natural. And the doctor literally said, I don't know how to help you with that. I can't help you with that. And so he, in his words, he fired the family doctor. And I'm sharing that story with you because, and again, I've said this many times, but it bears repeating. We are in such an amazing time right now where people's minds are shifting. We're going through a paradigm shift where people have looked at mainstream medicine as their primary source of healthcare. And now they're looking at it as the last resort of sick care. And that's not something that we have designed. That's not something that we've come up with in the profession of chiropractic. It's something that literally has just landed in our lap because of the powers that be with a pharmaceutical approach. Isn't that amazing? So this just landed in our lap right now. And there's so many people that are turned off from the way it was, and they're looking for something new. And therefore, our approach needs to be, how can we serve these people with this new desire that they have, right? So let me keep going, because with this schedule, obviously your capacity goes way up. You can build the high ceiling practice of your dreams. And I'll continue on, because with the high ceiling practice, what does this mean? This is high volume. This is high profits. This is the subluxation free practice. And in a subluxation free practice, everything runs smooth. Everyone knows what they're responsible for. Everybody's happy to come to work and help people. And they feel inspired because the people that they're helping, that we're helping, are constantly thanking us for our efforts, for our hard work. I mean, how many times do you get thanked every day from your patients for the results that they're getting through your hands? And this includes the CAs, right? The CAs, if a patient calls to cancel their appointment and you reschedule it for them and fit them in that day, and then they come in and they get adjusted on the way out, they say, thank you so much for fitting me in today. That was awesome, right? So that happens continuously for us all the time, day in and day out. And that's what we're striving for in DC trainings, is to help all of you to have that high ceiling magical practice that you are inspired to be a part of, that you are inspired to work hard for, and that you are constantly rewarded through your effort, by your efforts, through your patient base, right? So that's what we're looking for. And then I'll just kind of bring this from another angle, right? Because the only limits that affect your practice are the limits that you impose on yourself, right? If you're thinking, I can only do 2 reports of findings in the morning after I'm done with patients because I still need to go to lunch and I have to feed myself to get ready for the next day. Well, there might be another route for that. There might be another way for you to be able to do those report of findings and then also take your lunch, have your cake and eat it too. And at the same time, incorporate your team to be able to serve more people. I was at the front desk yesterday, and I was listening to my CA, who was actually 2 of my CAs at the same time received phone calls, and both of the phone calls at the same time were new patients. And I was next to one of them, so I was listening in on her call, and the patient just rapid fired probably 10 questions, like right off the bat, like, are you in my insurance? Does my insurance cover this? How much time will this take? How much will it cost me? What are the adjustments like? I mean, just, it was almost like a shopper that I had hired to call and ask all these questions. It was incredible how many questions they asked of my CA. And this is my relatively new CA. It just so happened that she's the one that took that phone call. Of course, the veteran CA with lots of years of experience took the easy phone call that just said, I want to schedule an appointment. And she scheduled it. But I happened to be listening to the newer CA, and she did such a great job. I was so proud of her. Every single one of the questions she answered. She got the new patient scheduled, and away we go. And those kinds of opportunities are coming up for us all the time in our office. And it's how we respond to those opportunities that allows not only for us to help our communities to be healthier and more vibrant and more full of life, but it's those opportunities that grow your practice and ultimately bring you satisfaction with your career and increase your income, right? I mean, we can't work for free. We do need to make money in our practices, But those are the opportunities when they come up. If you handle it right and you prepare in advance, if you are prepared and your team is prepared, when those opportunities come up, you'll nail it. And that way you won't be imposing limits on your practice, the opposite of what it says on the screen. You'll be expanding into a high ceiling practice, right? Okay, so just a little term here, and we'll kind of wrap up a little early today since it's a Q&A. I'll give you a chance to ask questions in a minute. I do have an example that I want to share with one of our doctors who had asked a question, but on the screen it says a care plan start. So yesterday when I had that report of findings, my CA came to me and I was adjusting. So, how do you communicate in an open adjusting room with 4 patients laying on tables in a discreet way that doesn't violate HIPAA or confidentiality, and at the same time communicates to the doctor what needs to happen? So my CA came up and she said, Dr. Sawyer, the ROF is in room 5 and there's start. Now, what does start mean? Start means it's a report of findings start. They're starting a care plan. What 3 things must happen for a report of findings to be considered a start? Well, there's 3 things. And those 3 things are important because all my CA has to do is say to me, they're a start. And I know those 3 things have just happened. So a start means, number 1, they are scheduling all their appointments. Now, all those appointments means a 12-month care plan, right? So they're actually scheduling 12 months of chiropractic care today. That's number 1. Number 2, they are going to make their first payment today. Okay, they're not going to pay next time. They're not going to bring something in later. They're not going to set anything up later. Today, they're going to make a payment. It's either going to be cash, check, credit card, whatever. A payment will be made today. And number 3, the 3 parts to a successful report of findings start is that they get adjusted. Okay, and it's usually, I guess, in the reverse order of that, because my CA gets agreement that they're going to pay today and they're going to schedule all their appointments. And then I adjust them after those things. But those are the 3 things that constitute a care plan start. And I want to encourage you to start incorporating those. Also, let your team know about them so that they can communicate with you. Okay, so that's a key factor in terms of your success in helping your patients. Here's an example of me adjusting a new baby, and a proud new mom. This was her first baby, and she's so happy and proud to bring her baby in to get adjusted, as she has been and her husband has been for years, right? So they're expanding their knowledge about how to maintain optimum health in through the next generation and beyond. So that's a really, really powerful key. Of course, BJ Palmer said, you never know how far-reaching something we may say, think, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And of course, these days, it's billions, right? So here's a child, and I think, well, when I adjust this baby, what's that going to do? Well, first of all, it's going to help this baby probably to poop a little better, since that was the issue that she was having, was that she was a little constipated. But aside from getting things moving the way that they should, this baby's going to grow up and become somebody. Someday she'll be a wife or a mom or a girlfriend, and she's going to have a career of some kind or aspirations. And I want to do my part, knowing that will help her to reach optimum health and be that much more successful in whatever she decides to do with her life. I mean, she could be someone who has a family. And of course, a healthier mom means a better, healthier family. And she might even go on to become, who knows, the president of the United States or some world leader. And that may be a ways down the road, but we're planting the seed. And by planting the seed now and helping this child to enjoy optimum health from a subluxation-free standpoint, she's going to make better decisions. She's going to have better opportunities. She's going to have more ambition. And all those things are going to come to fruition because we started out helping her to be subluxation free. And all those things go through my mind when I'm giving a new child their first adjustment. It's really incredible. So don't ever take that for granted. And let's make sure to help as many patients as we can. Okay, and then here, so this is our sort of outline on the report of findings, right? This is all the areas that we've covered. We started with preparing for the report of findings, right? You're not going to wing it. You're not going to just go by the seat of your pants. You're going to be prepared and make sure that you're prepared. Then you're going to do a proper greeting, right? The greeting sets the tone for the entire report of findings. That's the greeting. Then we talked about how to deliver the report of findings, how to start that report of findings. And we talked about how to incorporate the help of your team to do that. So you're actually working with your CAs, and that way they can deliver the report of findings while you're adjusting patients, or while you're on vacation, your associate doctor can be adjusting patients, but your CAs are going to be able to deliver those report of findings in an effective way and have plenty of starts in your practice, right? We talked about reviewing the subluxations and how to show somebody their condition. And one of the new doctors that I'm working with, I have to share this story with you. And at any time, if you have any questions, just raise your hand, because I want to answer your questions. But I was talking with one of our new members with DC trainings, and he was talking about whether or not he should get x-rays. He doesn't have an x-ray machine, and he was wanting to know if he should use x-rays. And I shared a story with him that I want to share with you now. And this is why I choose to use x-rays. Yes, they're not perfectly healthy or without some effect on the body, but the value is much higher than the risk, in my opinion. And so what I shared with him was, if I was to come to you and say, as a medical doctor, and I was going to say to you, people should not smoke cigarettes. They shouldn't, because we know that cigarette smoking causes cancer. So you should not smoke cigarettes because it causes cancer, and leave it at that. Now, I am an authority in that position, and I'm telling you truthful information. And given that statement, how many people stop smoking? As opposed to if I come to you as a medical doctor and I say, you have lung cancer. And we know this because here's the test that we just did that shows it. There's an x-ray, there's a lab test, there's all these tests that we did, and they clearly show that you have lung cancer from these tests. It's on the inside. Now, in those two scenarios, right, a generalization about people should stop smoking because it causes cancer versus a specific result that I'm showing the patient that they have lung cancer as a result of smoking, which one of those two scenarios is going to result in a person being more motivated to stop smoking? Which one of those two scenarios? Well, I think it's clearly obvious. The person who received the test that told them that they do have lung cancer is going to be much more motivated to stop smoking than the person who received information in a general way that smoking causes cancer, right? And I was just reading a book that was a great book. I want to thank Dr. Knich for this book, because it's, I'm going to draw a blank on the title of it right now, but it's about leading, being an effective leader. It's a great book, though, and I just finished it. So thank you, Dr. Knich. But in that book, he talks about how if I give someone $1, they'll take the dollar and they'll say thank you, and it's worth $1. If I try to take that $1 away, after I've given it to them, if I remove it from them, I would have to pay that person $2.50 for them to give up that $1. Now, what does that mean? People are much more motivated by a negative than they are by a positive. Almost 2.5 times as much more motivated by a negative than they are a positive. Now, I thought that was a great example in this book. It was perfect. Now, it reminds me of a quote by Sigmund Freud, and I've shared this with you at the seminars. The quote by Sigmund Freud says, people will do much more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. They'll do much more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. So in the case of our working with our patients and really helping people to understand and value what it is that we do, I think it's very important. And I'll go back to my screen here because I was midstream on our topics for this module. But when we review subluxations, it's very important to show your patients what that condition is that's affecting them inside their body. Show it to them. Now, you could choose to do x-rays. You don't have to do x-rays, though. You might do an exam result. You might do, range of motion, limited range of motion. You might do tenderness to palpation and connect it with swelling and inflammation. You might do a thermal scan or a subluxation station scan that shows differences in temperature as a result of problems. There's many, many ways that you can show a person how this condition is affecting them beyond just using words. My point being, use those extra tools whenever possible to show somebody their subluxations. So review those subluxations in depth. Again, I choose x-rays. I actually have a subluxation station, and I have a weight, which I showed you in the seminar, I have exam findings. So we use all the above to really show somebody what's going on under the surface in their body. And I think that's important. Then future health projections. Well, that goes right back to the quote that I just said. People will do much more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. So by projecting in the future and saying, if this condition continues in the way that it's been going, without you getting the care that you need, without resolving the condition or even stabilizing it. In other words, if we let this condition run its course, where will you be in X amount of time? And we talked about this in the last module, module 2, with a new patient. When you're doing a new patient history taking, it's critical that you find out how long this condition has been going and in some way dig for chronicity. In other words, if it's been there for a week because it's been really bad, ask about if there was other episodes prior to that. And typically, not always, but typically there are. And when those prior incidences exist, when those prior flare-ups or those prior episodes exist, we need to document those, because when we project to the future, we have to know how long this condition has actually been going on for. And we need to use that time frame to project to the future so that this individual can take a hard look at how has my health been going in the last whatever amount of time, right? It might be a year, it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years. Whatever that time frame is, how has my health been affected over that time? And generally, most of the time, if the condition is not solved or resolved, it's going to get worse. And these are, again, I'm just using this because today's a bonus webinar. So we're kind of covering all these topics. I'm going to share another example with you that this could help you in your practice when you're talking to your patients. But I had a patient yesterday, and she was here with her mom, and I was wanting her mom to sign up as a new patient because her mom, we'll get into this in module 6 in referral marketing. And this is the scenario where a patient brings in a spouse or a friend or somebody with them to an appointment, and my team sent them into a private room to meet me. So this daughter who I take care of came in with her mom, and I was asking her mom if she ever had any health issues or challenges. And her mom said, no, not really. I don't actually. I'm fine. But then she asked a question. She said, what caused my daughter's problems to start? And what it turned out to be was that the mom only knew about the most recent episode of the flare-up. She didn't know that this had been going on for years. And when we talked about that, I gave her this example. I said, if I was to cut my hand, this is the example, you might want to take notes on this because you can use this in your practice. But I said, if I was to cut my hand right now, it would go through a process of healing, right? We expect our bodies to heal. So if we get a little cut, we don't really worry about it too much as long as it doesn't get infected, because we expect it to do what? Heal. I said, so what happens with healing is at first it bleeds, but then it forms a scab and that stops the bleeding. And eventually, once it's healed enough underneath the scab, what happens to the scab? It falls off. That's right. And underneath that scab, usually there's what? A scar. And the scar is there. Now that the scar is there, eventually that should fade away. Now, after that's fade away, do you ever think about that cut again? No. Why? Because you expect it to heal and you expect it to go away and not have residual problems later. So let's change that story. Let's say that 10 years ago, you cut your hand. You expected it to go through the same process, but it didn't. And 10 years later, it was still bleeding. Would you be concerned about that? And she said, yeah, I would. Of course I would. And I said, that's kind of obvious, I know, but let's change the story a little bit. Let's say it's not bleeding all the time. So it's not like it's getting on your clothes all the time and everything. It only bleeds like once every 4 or 5 months, maybe once every 6 months. That's all, just once every 6 months, but it's been 10 years. Are you any less worried about that cut than you would be if it was still bleeding? She said, no, that would be crazy. And I said, what is it that's not happening for that cut to still be bleeding occasionally, but 10 years later? And she said, it's not healing. That's right. Now, in the body, what system is it that's responsible for healing? And like what if we were to narrow it down to one system in the body that does healing for the entire body in any scenario, what's the most powerful system in your body for that? She said, the nervous system. I said, that's right. When the nervous system is blocked to a certain part of your body, will that part of your body be able to heal? No, that's right. And if it's not healing, that's what we're seeing with your daughter. She's had this problem that's been intermittent, but it's been for a long time. And what we just found is where the body has been blocked from doing that which it's designed to do, which is to heal. And where that blockage is called a subluxation, and it's blocking the nerves that go into this part of her body. And I shared that example with her, and at the end of it, it was like she walked right into what I was anticipating. She said, "Could that be what's causing this bump behind my neck all the time?" And so I said, well, there's only one way to find out. Let's find out if you have a subluxation. And so I checked her spine, and she signed up as a new patient. So I know that's a little bit of a tangent today, but this is our Q&A. So I share that with you because those are the analogies and the examples that we use when we go through the report of findings process to bring about a better understanding so that an individual can take better care of themselves. And that's the basis, going back to here, for future health projections. Okay. Now, after that, we talked about creating care plans. And I want to elaborate on this for just a minute because we talked about creating care plans. And I want to emphasize this because if I have a patient that comes in for back pain and I adjust them until their back pain is gone, which could be one adjustment, it could be 5 adjustments, and I say, come back when it hurts. What I've essentially done, there's an old saying that says, if you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. And if you teach a person to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. And in my opinion, when we adjust somebody and focus around pain relief, we are giving them a fish for a day, right? They're going to feel better, which that's great. Chiropractic care helps with that. But they're only going to eat for a short time because it's one fish. They're not going to learn to fish. So they're going to feel better, and that's great. But they're really missing the big picture. So in terms of when we got into creating care plans, what we talked about was the importance of giving a big picture view of health. Not only, let's see you more in the beginning to help you with pain relief or whatever. If that's what brought you in, that's okay. We can help you with that. But where chiropractic stands apart and above, far above, almost any other healthcare profession in the world is in wellness. Right? In terms of what people can learn to appreciate and enjoy with long-standing, sustained, high-level health. That's where we stand apart, right? So we want to make sure that we create a care plan that gives somebody the vision of what's possible, not just pain relief, but the vision of taking their health to a level that maybe they haven't enjoyed for a long time, but learning to have expectations and confidence in themselves that's higher than just pain relief, higher than just staying right above the pain threshold, but really enjoying optimum health. And in my own life, and this is not to brag at all, but I have not taken a single pharmaceutical pill or potion or shot in 33 years. It's been since 1990, 33 years. I've not taken an aspirin, Tylenol, antibiotic, vaccine, nothing in 33 years. And it's because of the chiropractic lifestyle that I live. I have to attribute it to that because I jump off cliffs on my snowboard. Some of you I've actually snowboarded with. So jump off cliffs on my snowboard. I surf big waves. I've been bounced off reefs. And yet through chiropractic care and a healthy lifestyle, I've been able to enjoy a level of health that doesn't require that I take medications ever at all. Certainly not on a continual basis. Think of how many patients of ours are on continual medications, continual prescriptions, day in and day out, year after year, and not even knowing that their body has this amazing innate ability to heal itself. Amazing, right? And all we have to do is just share that information with the people around us, and most of those people will be inspired to reach out and grab it. Now, back to my screen. That's why we create care plans. Care plans are the long-term vision. It's the teaching people how to fish. It's the inspiration that's going to retain your patients for long terms. They're not going to come in for pain relief when they know what's possible if they stick with it. Then we talked about insurance forms. Oh boy, the fun stuff. And we'll get into this in the next module too. We're going to cover a lot of this on Saturday in terms of incorporating this vision or this idea that I just shared with you into the insurance world, right? How can somebody who has insurance that they pay a lot of money for utilize that insurance, but at the same time enjoy the optimum health and benefits that we provide through chiropractic care? How can they enjoy both of those things simultaneously? And we're going to talk about that in this module because it really comes down to cost, right? If I'm paying, thousands of dollars for health insurance with a high deductible that I almost certainly don't really get a lot of benefit from, but it's my insurance, I'm paying so much money for that. I want to use it. I want to have some benefit. So how do we incorporate that insurance into what will ultimately be my wellness care? And that's where we set the stage for that, or we grease the skids for that when we talked about insurance forms in this module, so that when we get into the next module, module 4, we can then really put that to work in terms of building care plans, right? I gave you the insurance forms, so you've got those now. You've got a good taste of that. It's kind of like when you're in high school and you take algebra and you learn that algebra, then you move on and you learn calculus, or maybe it's geometry, then trigonometry, and then calculus. My dad was a math teacher. He's retired now, but so that's how the flow goes. But you can't take calculus until you've passed algebra, and you can't take calculus until you've passed trigonometry, right? You have to gradually work up to that. So we covered the insurance forms in this module so that you would have some basis for building those into the care plans that are coming in the next module on Saturday. Okay. Then we talked about the reactivating new patient report of findings. And that this is a great one because it ties in with our module 6 marketing, right? Through the marketing that we're going to cover in module 6 in November, you're going to have a continuous flow of returning patients coming back to your practice. I had 2 yesterday, 2 returning new patients who've been former patients. And it was so great to see them. I mean, these are people that I really enjoyed taking care of, and I just hadn't seen them in a while. So through the marketing that I'll show you in module 6, you'll have a continuous stream of people that are coming back to see you. And when they come back to see you, maybe it's for pain relief. Maybe they didn't get it the first time. Maybe it didn't quite sink right in. Maybe they didn't quite get the big idea. That's okay, because we've got another opportunity to share our knowledge, share our passion, and share our information with somebody who's all ears and they're here to be helped. And when we get that opportunity, we want to go through a specific process that avoids the pitfalls that caused them to leave last time. And that's why we covered that, right? We want to make sure that that's not missed, the reasons why they left are not missed, so that we don't repeat the pattern and have them leave for the same reasons again. So we covered that in detail too. So those are, that was our series. Now in the next one, we're going to get into obviously going through how to set up financial arrangements for all of those different scenarios, whether it's a patient with insurance, whether it's a patient who's a personal injury case, whether it's and I jumped to the next screen and I didn't share my screen, so I apologize. That's going to be where we tie all this together. So as I was talking about the insurance forms, we're going to be tying it in. We're going to go through actual care plan worksheets, and we're going to be reviewing those and actually doing those in a workshop setting, to where you'll know exactly how to fill out a care plan worksheet as it relates to a patient with insurance, without insurance. Did their case type change, right? How many of us have had a patient who came in as a cash patient and then said, oh yeah, by the way, I have insurance, here's my card. Or they came in with their insurance card and then midstream they were in a car accident and suddenly they're a personal injury case and that changes everything. Or, there's all these different scenarios that happen. And we want to be quick on our feet to be able to have that be a seamless process. Oh, you've got insurance now? No problem. We can still take care of you. Oh, you were just in a car accident? No problem. We can still take care of you. Oh, you lost your insurance? No problem. We can still take care of you. In fact, we can make sure it's affordable, because if you lost your insurance, that means you might have lost your job, which means you're probably very concerned about costs. Now's the time when you need your health to back you up, pun intended, sorry. But you need your health to back you up more than ever, right? I mean, if you just lost your job, you're under a lot of stress. What would happen if you lost your health now too? So we're here to work with you and make sure that this works out for you in the long run, so that you have your health as a solid foundation from which you can find the new job and continue to support your family and go on from there. So those are the things that we're going to be covering on Saturday as it relates to the report of findings. All right. And I think that is a lot today to cover. So I want to just a couple things. There was a couple questions that came in, and I want to share these examples with you. So I've got a paper here, so I'm going to read a couple of these off. So the first one was about the American Specialty Health contract. And I want to just make an announcement on this because I have coached many of you in terms of how to work within American Specialty Health and make sure that you're setting up your care plans with that. I got out of ASH because they have not, and this is something I learned, but they have not adjusted their reimbursement schedule since 1997. Think about that. From 1997 until now, they have not increased their reimbursement rates since then. So how much are we getting paid per visit in terms of what we're worth or what the value is? Not much, according to ASH's position on the whole thing. In addition to that, though, what have they done with the number of visits they cover? Even though they sell plans that cover 20 visits, sometimes 30 visits per calendar year, they have reduced those visits down to where you have to request authorization for anything over 5 visits. And if you go over 6 visits on an annual basis, and that's an average with all the patients that you take care of, all the ASH patients, if you're over 6 visits on average, they'll drop you a tier. And the lower tier scale you are, the less you're reimbursed, the less visits they authorize. And eventually, if you get to a tier 1, they kick you out. So what does that tell us? Even though they're promising packages of 20 visits or 30 visits a year to the employers, we're paying a lot of money for those. On the provider side, they're saying, we're never going to pay out on all those visits. And if we do, you'll get away with it maybe for a year or so, but you won't get away with it after that because we'll remove you from the network. So they're promising these big packages and they're receiving payment for big packages, but they never pay out on them. They only pay out on a small portion of visits as it relates to the packages that they're selling. So from an ethical standpoint, I couldn't sign on with that. I just couldn't. That's just doesn't go. It's not in my nature to be unethical when it comes to the care of patients, and certainly not let it dictate how I take care of my patients because the insurance company doesn't want to cut their profits. So I wanted to just let you know that. And this question was about the tiers, and the doctor was asking about how, being penalized because he was being penalized for seeing patients too many visits, and they were dropping him a tier. So I got out of the network. Now, the question that came up after that was, now that I'm out of network, can I show the patients what the contract says? Because prior to that, if you showed the patients the contract, which clearly says if you're above 6 visits on average for all your patients, you'll be removed a tier and eventually kicked out of the network. Can I show the patients that contract if I am out of network? Because they can't kick me out. I'm not bound by the contract. Now I can show them the contract. So if you have been a provider with ASH, just keep that in mind. I'm obviously not suggesting you would do anything illegal or in violation of the contract. But if you're not in contract with them, the answer that I got from an expert source was you can show them the contract now because you're out of network. So anyways, that was the first question. The second scenario I just want to share with you, and this was something that came in as a question, is regarding the success rate reports for report of findings and for care plan renewals. And this is sort of a lesson that I'll be teaching this again on Saturday when I see you at the seminar. But if you have report of findings that come in, the way we measure this in DC trainings is how many of those report of findings started care. So let's say I had 2 reports of findings that came in. If both of them start care, I have a success rate of 100%. If one of them starts care, I have a success rate of 50%. And the way it's measured is arrived and started. How many arrived? How many started their care plan? That's how it's measured. Very simple. And that's for report of findings and care plan renewals, right? There's 5 focuses in DC trainings. Those are 2 of them. The other 3, I'm not going to get into right now. But I want to point this out because what I've seen in 2 offices, and you know who you are, I want to help you to fix something that's an error. And what that is that in these 2 practices, you have had, I'm going to reverse it. You've had one person come in for a report of findings or a care plan renewal, and 2 people start care plans. Now, you see how that doesn't make sense? You can't have one person arrive for their ROF and have 2 people come out the other side starting a care plan. You could have 2 people come in for an ROF and 2 people start, but you can have more people start than you have arriving. So please double check your numbers. And there's 2 of you, you know who you are. And I told you I would talk about this today because you had questions about it. But if I have an arrived and started, the arrived number must always be bigger than the started. And the way you'll know very quickly if this is not correct is if your success rate is above 100%. That's the simplest way. So if I see an office, and I'm helping lots of doctors, chiropractors across the country, if I see an office where the success rate for either of those two focuses, report of findings or care plan renewals, is above 100%, instantly I know there's an error in that system in terms of where their data is being entered. So in the case of the doctor who just asked me this question this week, I'm not going to say who it is, of course, but I'm just going to tell you, you have a delegation issue. The person who you've delegated this to, and it's a CA, doesn't really understand what I just explained in enough of a way to take ownership about it. And what's happening is she is entering in the wrong numbers, not really realizing how that affects the outcome. And in this particular case, I know you've been on vacation for 2 weeks. And while you were gone, obviously the practice is running and that's all great. But to have these numbers be skewed means that your expectations probably aren't going to be met when you get back, right? You're going to expect your office to run smoothly when you're gone. And you're looking at the numbers saying, well, everything seems fine. But then when you get back, just because those numbers are inaccurate, you may be way off the mark in terms of what you were expecting while you were gone. So part of DC trainings is I always take the time to teach you how to run a successful business from the business standpoint. I don't get into technique or style of practice. I focus on the business side of of running a practice through DC trainings, so that you, as a business, your business can run and continue to thrive and flourish in the years to come, as did the original Palmer Clinic with DD and BJ Palmer. That's how you want your practice to run. So I just wanted to bring those up. Those are 2 great questions that came in for everybody. We'll wrap it up here. I am excited to see you this weekend. Saturday is going to be a great day. Please come in early. Registration starts at 9:30. We'll start at 10 o'clock, go till about 3, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little more, depending on how many questions there are. But we've got a big day. I'm super excited to share the day with you and to talk about chiropractic and do the things that I think further our profession in so many ways. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. And let's see, I think I forgot to even open up the line for questions. Are there any questions? I don't want to cut it short, but any questions? Boy, this hour just went by way too fast. I was having too much fun. Okay, for everybody else, as always, let me know if you have any questions. dctrainings@gmail.com. I will see you Saturday. It's going to be a great day to just fill in all the gaps and make sure your practice is running smooth. And other than that, actually, I switched. I don't know how to, let me see. Okay, here we go. Sorry, there was a button I was looking for. I found it. Have a great day. Thank you for being part of DC Trainings. I will see you Saturday and talk to you soon.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.